And now we're on. We live.
Hi everyone. Welcome to our second virtual write-in of NaNoWriMo this year. I'm Kristen. I'm the YWP and operations intern this fall at NaNoWriMo.
I'm Nick Fierro. I am the programs intern at NaNoWriMo this fall. Yeah, today is November 7th, which makes it the first official webcast during NaNoWriMo, or at least our first virtual write-in. We've had webcasts on last Saturday,
yeah,
so you're ready for that.
We did a Halloween one. So today we wanted to talk a little bit about finding light in the pit of despair, which is how I think of it. In that this first week, well, I've been having trouble with like hitting walls and finding problems with my plot and moving forward and developing those things. So we've been talking about different ways to overcome those problems and move on and come up with new ideas. How are you doing with your novel?
Oh boy, the thing that I keep coming back to for this particular novel is the fact that it's going way better than my last year's novel did. Like I feel like at this point in the year, a year ago, my will to write was just already gone. So like I was just doing it to kind of push through. But this year I'm like actually there's like a small kernel of excitement that's still left in my novel. But I know that I'm going to push through it and keep going, as should all of you guys. Let's hear about what you're thinking for your novel so far. How is everything going? That's a big question for today.
Let us know how your novels are going. I am struggling. I am at 7,000 words, and I've hit a lot of walls that it's been a challenge, but it's not terribly behind.
Yeah, I think today's the 7th, so the quote unquote like word count, like the recommended word count if you want to be on track for like every day, 1667. I think today is 10,000 words, or was that last night?
Yesterday was
10,000, so today would be 11,667. But no matter what point you're at, there's still I can't do math anymore, but there's still X number of days left in the month to reach the goal that you've set for yourself. Personally, I am a little bit behind. I'm at a little over 9,000 right now. I think I decided last night I was going to go to sleep instead of getting my workout done, which is okay. That's okay, because sleep is really important too.
So do you want to just jump right into the sprint for writing's sake?
I think so. We're just gonna.
People sound like they really need it.
Like yeah, really I think so. I think so. Forward. That's a good plan. Okay, so if you want to describe what
our first sprint is. Our first sprint is going to be 5 minutes, and we were thinking in the spirit of our own problems, you should put your character in a situation where they feel despair or frustration or whatever stops them from doing what they want to be doing, and then use that situation to vent your own feelings in their words and in their voice, if that makes sense. It'll be posted in the chat if it doesn't, but.
So depending on if you've got a character that is a lot like yourself as a person or somebody who's really different, see if you can write about the problems that you're experiencing through their eyes, I think.
Or even just the frustration and the feelings.
Or just frustration. Like let out that frustration. I think it goes without saying also, like for any one of these sprints or anything, feel free to write whatever you want. If the prompt doesn't strike your fancy, or you're just feeling really good about where you're at in your own writing, feel free to just follow along with the time and write whatever you need to. But this is just our suggested prompt. Excuse me.
Our goal is to help you keep going.
Yeah. So this sprint is what, 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
Okay, so I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes, and we will let you know it's about halfway, and then when the time is up, and then we will hear what all of you have written. If you want to put it in the chat when you're done.
Yeah, let us know.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So start. Yeah. just froze.
Use notebook.
We're about halfway through the time, so you got 2.5 minutes left. All right, and time is up. Okay.
What did you write about? Tell us what you wrote about.
Well, I'll be honest. My word processor froze for about 2 minutes, but I kept writing on my notebook. So I was trying to work through my characters. My story has a few main characters, so there's no like one specific person. So I tried to write a bit about like, okay, what frustrates them, what makes them really upset. And it's interesting. I need to get some more nuance in there. I think maybe that's for a later draft. But I felt like a couple characters, like nothing phases them. They're just like iron-willed, and then other people are just they'll kind of snap at nothing. So kind of anything will frustrate them. So a little bit on both sides, but I can get some more in the middle later on, I think. What about you? Let's see, you wrote a lot.
I wrote 185 words.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Well, to be totally honest, I've started writing like really wordily. Mm-hmm. That's not a word, but whatever.
Wordily is a word, I think, right?
like with like way more words than
verbose.
Verbose, yeah.
Verbose.
So that's part of why, because I'm also desperate to catch up on my word count. But I wrote about, I have 4 main characters.
Okay.
And the one that I haven't written about at all yet, and she hates this one businessman, and she wants to get revenge on this businessman, but by targeting other people because she can't actually target him, and she's very bitter. And so I wrote about her and her bitterness because I'm a big fan of like character flaws and writing about the dark sides of characters.
So are they finding their way out of the pit of despair and into the light, or are they going to have to stay in the darkness for a while?
My whole novel is about how to get out of the pit of despair. And if you can't get out, then how to nourish the light and how to build your own light, even though you're there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you can't.
Very art imitates life kind of thing, at least for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Let's hear what all of you have to say in the chat. My character just got screamed at by a giant spider. That's, I mean, who can't relate to that? I know, I really like that. That's really cool. Let's see.
Found a dead body and trying to decide whether to set it on fire.
That'll cause some despair, I think.
There's a short story that reminds me of. It's like The Most Beautiful Drowned Man in the World, I think is the English translation. Have you heard of it?
I haven't, no.
Okay.
Is it about somebody setting a body on fire?
Never.
Okay, all right. One of my new 2 characters is working up the courage to go visit her younger sister in the insane asylum. The other main character is her younger sister and is tossed between their 2 diaries. I love stories like that. Just kind of that epistolary, like letter by letter or diary entry kind of thing, is really cool. Let's see if we can figure out like 1 or 2 more here. My character's trying to process an interview with a sociopath. That's really interesting. Especially for me, like I like psychology type stuff. So stories like that are always really interesting.
Struggling with frustration as she fakes interest in a rebellion group simply to be able to turn them over to a government for the biggest score of her career. I love that.
That's a great plot.
Detailed.
Yeah. I think what's important to remember, though, is for all the despair and struggle that we sometimes enjoy putting our characters through, it's important to try and remember, like for ourselves as writers, what's frustrating us, like what is putting us in a bad mood or making us feel like, like running into obstacles. Like how do we overcome that? I think is really important to try and remember. So hopefully this exercise, I think, helped all y'all, get out some of those frustrations and maybe figure out a way to go next. Yeah. And
I think once you have like a sense of that and you understand your own frustration, it's a lot easier to come up with a framework to reframe the way that you're thinking about your novel and thinking instead about why have you chosen to write this story? Like, what is it about this story that is motivating you, that is interesting you, and how can you refocus back to those things?
Yeah. Remember last week we talked about like write to yourself. If you tuned in for the webcast last week, we talked a bit about like figuring out like what do you want from this novel, what's your vision for the novel. And so I think the point, a week now, a week into the future, all my words have gone into my writing. I've spared nothing for my talking words. Important thing is to try and see if you're on track with that vision, or kind of if you are getting what you want from the novel. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. What is your light, and how can you, as I would say, like nourish that light? How can you feed it? How can you make it bigger for yourself? Because NaNoWriMo is hard. It's very hard, and you've got to. I'm struggling a lot with it, and so I've been trying to focus on what are the parts that are the reason I'm doing it. You know what I mean? That are inspiring, that I'm excited about. So let me know. Let us know in the comments. I'm really interested in hearing, like,
what's your
thank you.
core. I can't do it either. Again, like why are you writing this? I guess we've talked about this before. One of the
What is motivating?
What is motivating you? Here we go. It's easy to look at your NaNoWriMo novel and say, I am writing these things today because I want to reach 50,000 words, as opposed to I want to write these things today because I want to put together a good story. I want to, show off these characters. I want to help them get out of their pit of despair, so to speak. Different, reasons for why you're writing stuff. So I think remind yourself of that. And if you want to share that in the comments, that's great. I love the story that I'm writing about. The world needs my novel. That's a really good attitude to take. Like, the world needs my novel, or like I need my novel. I wrote because it makes me feel better. That's really good. What else? Oh God, the chat is blowing up now. What do you have to say? Something to say about that? Do you have like a reason for your novel? It's a tough question. I'll say, yeah.
I'm really interested, I think, in exploring the themes that I have centered the major plot points around. Mm-hmm. And I'm really interested in seeing how my characters eventually find their way around, like, navigating mm-hmm. those issues and those questions that I think I also have. And so I'm writing it so that they figure it out and I figure it out with them. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I like that.
What about you?
I think for me, I've tried to think about this a lot. This particular project is one that I think I mentioned this. I've worked on this project in different shapes and forms for a few years. And so this is like kind of one opportunity for me to just get it written and like get a draft out. I think it seems like a simple reason, but just I want to get it out just because I want to get it out. There's a bunch of like other projects that going on the back burner that I really want to work on, but I also tell myself like, oh, I really just need to get this one out of the way, and then I can move on to those other things. It's not to say that I don't like the story that I'm writing or that I don't want to write it. It's more like it's almost like a I'm not sure. That's not the right word at all. But it's like a block in itself. Like I just need to break through it and get it done, and then I can move on with my life. So it has to be written. That's why.
My favorite in the comments is, I'm writing this novel to fall in love with writing again. I relate to that so much.
I write to heal my heart. How poetic. I love that. Okay,
so moving on, just because we want to do more sprints for you. In that vein, we want to think about like what motivates your characters and what it is that drives them. Mm-hmm. So one of the prompts that for the sprint that you could take, not take, whatever you like, is to have one character tell another what it is that they want and how they're going to get it.
Mm-hmm. So that's our next sprint, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this one is 10 minutes long. Okay. So everybody get your writing hats back on. I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes. Nope, that's an hour. Not an hour. And if we're all ready to go, again, the prompt is have one character tell another what they want and how they're going to get it. All right, so I'll start the timer. Ready?
Yeah.
All right. And everybody begin.
You have about 5 minutes left. FYI. You all have about 2.5 minutes left.
And that's the time. Somebody is talking outside. That's okay. Okay, so that's the time, everybody. In case you missed that, let's share your word counts. How much did you write, and what did you have to say?
I wrote. Hang on. Let me count.
That's good. I wrote. Let me select. I wrote 332 words, which is better than I expected.
I wrote 400 words.
Nice. So we got lots of great word counts. Some people up in the 400s, 500s. That's awesome. 560. That's great. Yeah, glad these word counts, these word sprints are helping.
Helpful.
Yeah, definitely. So let's hear. What did you have to write about?
I kind of went off a little bit because I didn't. I didn't want to like jump to a whole different thing. I wanted to keep the flow. So
it's okay to do that though.
Basically, my character is like a monster exterminator, and so she wants to destroy this like legion of monsters that's taking over. That's taking over where she lives, and she has to learn how to do that. And that's her plan. Is that she's like recruiting people, and they're educating themselves on these monsters and on how they operate and how best to get rid of them.
I like that. That seems a lot more concrete than what I ended up having. I kind of fell back on my normal like go-to of just like make a dialogue between some characters, like have them talk. When I need to write a scene that it doesn't need to be like super descriptive, but just get information out. I tend to go for just like a Socratic dialogue. I just get characters and just have them ask each other questions that have kind of like pretty clear logical answers. So I ended up just having a scene where these characters are talking like, what do you want from me? What do you want from yourself? Like very philosophical. What happened was one of these main characters saved the other one from this kind of catastrophe that happened at the beginning of the story. And she's having a lot of like, why did you save me as opposed to somebody else? And like, why do you make me stick around when clearly like I've fulfilled my purpose to you? So there's a lot of like questions about like, are you just kind of stringing me along on your journey, or can I go kind of? Yeah. So let's hear what everybody had to write about. So again, feel free to share some of your word sprint material. Let's see.
A lot of these are really violent.
I
kind of dig it.
I dig it too. Yeah. I mean, in the story sense. Socratic dialogue approach has always worked for me on kind of when I have a roadblock.
I wrote about my rebel girl and her rant about justice for the children slaughtered in the raids the army does.
I mean, justice is a good motivator.
I love it.
It's great. Let's see. Yeah, I wrote the character got trapped by a demon and she's trying to escape him. Side character explains to the main character the reason she's having an affair with a married man. That's really good. People, like you're right. A lot of people were like, battles, kidnappings, just like scary stuff, and that kind of makes sense with the, we're coming off of Halloween, and we're talking about getting out of the pit of despair from your writing.
My character is sad because her crush is on vacation. That's nice.
That would make anyone sad.
I know.
Although I'm going to assume that this is a story in which like text messaging doesn't exist. Although to be fair, like even with texting,
you can still miss something.
You can absolutely no. You're absolutely right. But like that's like really good. I like that. Like I don't have plot points like that, but like maybe I should.
Recovering from a heist. You don't hear enough.
My main character just started a cooking workshop. That's awesome. I love. I mean, like I'm a sucker.
So much can go wrong in that.
Well, I'm just a sucker for like food related writing. That's fantastic. Let's see, how are we doing on time? I think we're right on schedule.
All this stuff makes me so happy.
I know. I love it. I love hearing people talk about their writing, just in general, because they're the ones who are going to be able to talk about it best. The person who wrote something.
I love it. Okay.
In a hospital scene, my character almost got killed by a giant wolf. I like that. Okay. Do you want to move to the next one?
Hospital?
In a hospital, they almost got killed by a giant wolf.
That is so unfortunate.
That's so cool, though. Not the fact they almost got killed, but like just the whole concept.
Oh, they weren't attacked in the hospital.
By a giant wolf.
They were attacked and then they went to the hospital.
That makes sense.
Got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
Cool.
Where are we?
Let's go to discussion number 2, I think.
Do you want to take it?
Sure. So the next big topic that we're going to talk about, I think you brought this up in our discussion before about how to get out of the pit. What was it, like lamps, ladders, and lifeboats?
Oh, a lamp, a lifeboat, or a ladder?
Yes. So it was kind of like in the context of how do you get out of like a pit or cave, or like if you're stuck somewhere, how do you get out? And so different methods of like doing that. So we're going to talk a bit about how do you develop a plot, how do you move things along, how do you connect scenes in general. And so if you want to think about that kind of metaphor, maybe how do you make a ladder to get from the bottom to the top of the story, or vice versa, depending on if you have a spelunking-based story.
Or even just how do you navigate your characters in a way that gets them from point A to point B while still developing your ideas, developing your characters, developing your story.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I've been struggling with in my writing, because it's like, okay, I know the basic plot points, but I'm not sure how to get the characters like around the plot, and I'm very stuck.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely kind of run into that problem too. When it comes down to like how I write in general, I often have just a collection of like, where are these characters going to intersect and what's going to happen from that. I don't so much have like, there's going to be this battle scene or this confrontation of some other nature happening here. It's more like these characters are going to meet, and something is going to happen in some way. I don't know what it's going to be, but I just kind of know like how are their personalities going to clash, or how are they going to come together. So I think for me, that often results in me falling back into the habit of just writing scenes that go on for a really long time because they're just talking. And again, I think for me, kind of in defense of like my own type of writing, and obviously of people. Maybe people who are watching who tend to write like that as well, who just like long dialogue scenes, or scenes that don't necessarily push the plot forward but kind of help flesh out the characters. I think there's a lot of good value in that, I would say. But it's also, I think, for me, like my roadblock often becomes like, how do we just keep things moving instead of stopping the train by the tracks and just having a chat.
And also, how do you write small moments that matter in between the major plot points?
Yeah. I think, who does this really well?
Lots of people.
People, the kind of books that I really enjoy reading are often filled with just kind of small moments like that. They don't necessarily contribute to the story. One of the books I read over the summer, I like to read Haruki Murakami a lot, and one of the books that I read was Colorless Tsukuru Tazaki and His Years of Pilgrimage. And without spoiling it, I would say it's about 400 pages of a story that could be condensed into 2 sentences. Like a guy was friends with these group of friends in high school, and then they grew apart kind of unexplainably. And 20 years later, he just wants to find out what happened, and so he goes and finds out what happens. Like, that's pretty much the whole story. It's 400 pages of that, and I really enjoyed it because although like the actual plot elements were pretty bare, just what happened in between, just the conversations they had about kind of anything and everything, I really like that sort of thing.
And sometimes that's the whole point of the book.
Exactly,
it isn't necessarily about the plot. I mean, one thing that blows my mind is like The Catcher in the Rye. If you really try to boil it down, it's like sad boy wanders around New York for 3 days.
Right.
I mean, but it's so full of so many important things,
Because when it comes down to it, I think a lot of it is just observation about the world around the characters.
And so those moments of observation and small dialogue are so important.
Yeah. People talk about world building, like even aside from like if you're writing a speculative fiction like fantasy or sci-fi, like world building, even if you're writing the most realistic, down-to-earth novel, a lot of what you can do is just like talk about like what's going on around your characters, even if it's not directly affecting them, like what's going on around them and how is that shaping their view of the world and, you know, by extension, you know, what they choose to do. I think that kind of gets underplayed a lot, but I think it's important to try and keep that in mind. I think it can be really good, especially for when you're writing.
So what we want to do for the next sprint is think about how to connect scenes and kind of in between points of how to get from point A to point B. So we were thinking that one option for us to do would be to pick 2 scenes and connect them by identifying
a beginning and end. Yeah.
Did you mean like an end and then a beginning?
So the next exercise we're going to do is essentially just like pick 2 of your scenes wherever they are in the plot. That could be scenes that that you have started writing or that you've planned or that you don't know about yet. Just try and pick 2 scenes, identify kind of what's point A and what's point B, and then write the middle part. Like write the A to B part.
How did the characters get from the one point to the second point?
So if you've got one character who is, you know, exploring the jungles of, you know, the Amazon, and another person is, you know, living in an apartment in Iceland or something, whatever, and you need them to meet so that they can, you know, clash or that they can work together for something. What do you need to do to make it so that those come together? You know, is that a good way of putting it? Or?
I think so.
Okay. So yeah, any 2 scenes, just identify point A, point B, and write about the connection. It can be, you can write a full scene or write an outline or whatever you need to do.
Also, can I throw something in that's kind of irrelevant?
Sure.
Someone asked if anyone uses MBTI for character development, and I love doing that. Also, Enneagram. I know, like, there's a lot of controversy, but for character development and inventing characters, it's a really fun tool. Okay, yeah, that's all. This is 10 minutes.
Yeah, and again, I think, again, if you you don't need to follow this prompt. This is a suggested prompt. So if you want to just write a word sprint, a 10-minute sprint on your own, that's also totally fine. But this is just kind of our suggested activity. All right. So I'll start the timer right now. Okay. Oh, you have about 5 minutes left. Y'all have about 2 minutes left. And that's the time. Put down your writing utensils and hats and everything. All right, time's up. Let's hear what you wrote. First, how many words did y'all write? Let me count. I have 268. What about you?
We got about 400.
400. That's really good.
I've been like super desperate.
Yeah,
to
no,
get a
yeah.
word count out.
Yeah, I realized. Yeah, I can actually put this into my story and get my word count up. It's not just on its own. So what did you write about?
I didn't actually follow the prompt. I tried, and
That's okay.
I didn't.
That's okay. I tried to kind of do the A to B thing.
Yeah, how was that for all of you? Did any of you do it?
I saw a few people say in the text that like the prompt worked for them, and they're trying to work on their transitions between scenes a lot, which is really good.
Okay.
For me, I kind of going back to the point about like I don't plan out scenes. I plan out character meetings and stuff. I thought about like, okay, here are two major characters because I have like it kind of jumps between like different characters' perspectives and stuff. So I try to think like, okay, how do they meet and how do they become friends? Because they haven't met yet. So I kind of talk about like, okay, here's how they know mutual people and how different things will happen to bring them together.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's so important to figure out.
Yeah, and it's good that I'm planning it out now because I definitely didn't plan it out before. So what about everybody in the chat? What did you write about? How many words did you write, and what kind of scenes did you talk about? Okay, two main characters are laughing together for once. That's really good. Didn't finish anything.
My character is getting the training she needs to be a better superhero. That's actually really good. Like
it's on theme too. It's perfect.
Space.
Yeah, make too many characters finally met towards the end of chapter 3 of your story. Introduce a character who might be a love interest. That's really good. Great. What else? My character, this is somebody who didn't do the prompt, but they went to check out the library on the space station she's on. I like that. That's really cool.
Oh, that's actually kind of is
the
prompt. Yeah.
So I think, yeah, with these kinds of exercises or like these, A to B, transitions, they can be really, really hard. Like I know that they're really hard for me. But I think as with kind of a lot of other things, it comes down to just like getting that practice in, starting to get comfortable with how to do, write those kinds of scenes is really good.
I think a really important part of, at least for me, what Nano has been is about the struggle. It's about learning how to struggle. It's about learning how to persist, like despite frustration and being in the pit, and maybe you can't get out of the pit of despair. Just like having being okay with being there and keeping going anyway.
Yeah.
There are no consequences for bad art. I say that a lot. It's even if you're writing like nothing good, you're practicing and you're getting that practice and you're still generating and you're still working on yourself as well. And so I think there's a lot of value in like taking the time to struggle and to write stuff that you think is probably not worth anything.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. Something I try and remind myself is like there's no such thing as wasted writing. Like you might write something and then read it on later and discard it for that draft or change it up. But when it comes down to it, like nothing that you write doesn't contribute to your development as a writer. That's at least been my experience. Like I think the important thing is to just practice and to just kind of set yourself that habit of writing every day, and then you'll get better as you go along and get more comfortable with it.
And also, just because you think something isn't interesting doesn't mean that it's not. Because I'm reading some of your guys' like ideas and scenes, and they're fantastic. They're so fascinating, and it makes me want to read all of these scenes, and I love it.
A quote: "Bad writing precedes good writing." That's like an excellent way of just putting it. When it comes down to it, like that's that first draft. You just get it out there, and you can fix it up later.
Yeah, so is there anything else?
I don't think so. I think on that note, we're probably going to end it, right? Unless you've got anything else to...
Thank you all so much for joining us today. This was really helpful for me as well.
I'm definitely in the same boat. I think I've definitely made some breakthroughs on my characters and everything. So just remember, like, it doesn't end on November 30th. It starts on November 30th. I mean, NaNoWriMo obviously started on November 1st, but in a way, like, your writing doesn't stop at the end of the month.
And that's what we're here for.
Great. But don't forget, we've got we've got another webcast next week, same time, same place. But yeah, thank you all for sharing all of your thoughts, your word counts, joining us on this great word sprint, and we'll see you next time.
Good luck with week 2.
Bye.
Bye.